Welcome to the Jarol SVU channel. Today we have a surprisingly good deck to discuss, Snoke Data Vault. I think this is the best mono deck in the game right now, probably also best command villainy no blue deck. Leave a like and subscribe. Let's start.
If you have watched previous episodes, you know that first I thought the best Snoke would be with red. It offers the most synergies, replacing Vader with Data Vault. However, it turned out that free HP has too much importance in the matchup against Sabine. Besides, without Vader's pink, Guard Saxon ECL and Guard Saxon Yellow become a very difficult matchup. I decided as usual to look for the most versatile option possible. I abandoned the idea of yellow because it's very similar to red, and blue doesn't make sense because these colors include Kira and Krennic, so I ended up with mono green. After experimenting with Red Snoke, I realized that mono green doesn't just give you a command card, a few options instead of a third color, but above all Data Vault, and it turned out to be a sensible choice as of today. I think mono Snoke is the best version of Snoke for this card base. This deck strategy is quite unique. In theory, it's soft control like the red version, but against some decks, thanks to Command and his ability to give 2 experiences to Snoke, you can make Snoke 7-10, and after his first attack, he keeps growing. If your opponent doesn't have a response, you can easily win even a long matchup in a few turns. Therefore, when playing this deck, you sometimes have to consider whether the Snoke could become your finisher instead of using it to kill opponent's units. Now, as usual, let's see what this deck has for each turn. On the first turn, we have Salacious, whose Snoke makes 2-4. If played on the first turn, its stats are okay. Sometimes its ability to recall it can be useful to kill a super laser tech and gain an extra card, or gain a good card to force throw. Beyond the first turn, its returning heal of 1 or even 2 can also be very important when you have Yularen. Yularen in this deck because its pro can provide healing and make Emperor's Royal Guard a sentinel thanks to its official trait. Snoke can give him an experience, but unfortunately there aren't any better options in these colors. Vani is an auto-include in any deck with Snoke, as besides being a solid 2-4, it allows to easy shifting of experience when played on attack. This can be very helpful because sometimes you don't optimally distribute experience tokens because you have to give them to the unit with the most power. Having only one Germoran retainer per unit with only 2 HP is currently poorly positioned in the meta with the most decks played 2-4. However, with 3 Fury units it's quick to trade, so Sentinel isn't the only useful element. We potentially have 8 Sentinels in this deck, as protecting Snoke's deploy turn can be very useful, as well as defending the base in general to get into the late game. As our turn 1 play in space, we have 3 First Order TIE Fighters. The idea is that on the first turn, Snoke makes him free to thanks to experience, with a situational rate if we happen to have tokens from TIE Reinforcement or TIE Ambush Squadron, 2 of which we play in the sideboard. On the second turn, we have full ramp package. Of course, a minimum of 7 ramps is an auto-include in such a deck. Super Laser Technician is currently much better than Resupply because ramping alone no longer guarantees that the opponent won't simply counter your expensive moves and leader quite easily due to the great potential of Force Throw and Hand 2. There aren't many counters to Technician in the meta, and if he manages to deal 2 damage somewhere, it can significantly change the table math. Praetorian Guard and Emperor's Royal Guard are useful sentinels with solid stats. Praetorian Guard is better because its condition is easier to meet. Eagle Escort Fighter comes in 2 and Black Sun's Starfighter comes in 1. Eagle Escort Fighter is better in the current meta because it can kill Victor Leader, Falcon or Red 5. One Black Sun is due to Vader because you can summon Eagle Escort Fighter with it. For 4 resources, we have Enterprising Lucky, a solid 5-5, and the option for his return with Smuggle for 6, useful in long matchups. Besides, thanks to Snoke's ability, if you didn't have a ramp on turn 2, you can always consider playing free on turn 3 and giving someone 1 experience. For 5, you can play another fairly solid B2 Legionnaires Sentinel, but only 1 as we already have enough Sentinels. Furthermore, timely reinforcement usually played in long games, not on 5 resources, but when the opponent has a lot of them. But against space aggro, even 2 tokens in space with a Sentinel can be very important. We also have 2 Rooks, solid stats and potential threat to any large unit on the opponent's ground. For 6, we have 1 Gladiator Star Destroyer, a solid 5-6 for 6, and when played, the ability to give someone a Sentinel usually intended to slow down space decks as an additional option for timely reinforcement. The new Eye of Sion card, on the other hand, can be useful in virtually any matchup where the opponent has some space units. It can kill multiple space units, heal one, sometimes allocate damage on the base with Overwhelm, and most often stay on table. But Snoke comes out on 5, so most of the times we play some 5 and give some unexperienced token. On 7 the issue is clear, we are playing a 60 card deck, so we undoubtedly need 3 copies of Vader and Maul. These two are still among the main reasons to play Command Villainy. Reinforcement Walker is also a very strong card and we need to play 3 card copies in a 60 card deck. Devastator concludes the card discussion, there is no doubt we need 3 copies in deck with Data Vault. Snoke, Sevens, Walker and Devastator are the reason we need a lot of ramp, and the main strength of this deck is Command, which gives us the ability to recall cards from the discard pile before side, so that this deck can fight anyone for a long time and it's very strong in the late game. The main problem is how to access it, but we have quite a few tools for that, so the deck is solid. Before we move on to the matchups, let's take a look at the sideboard. The third Confiscate is because pilots and lightsabers can really hurt this deck, and with mono green we don't have better options. Free Palpatine's Return auto-includes in every Command Villainy deck, a great card against discard decks and in long matchups. Fold the Feather Dragon twice for 6. The ability to remove most of the problematic units your opponent might play is strong enough. It's also a great card against Cried Dragon, as its remove will only give you 4 in your base or unit. Mono green theoretically has some removal options like Barrage, Craving Power and Maul, but they all have significant limitations. Only Devastator is a sure bet here, but with 60 card deck we might not draw it. Besides, against Cried Dragon its removal can sometimes get as much as 10, which can be too much.
Too relentless against control, especially heavy control. I don't play the third because heavy control isn't very popular and this deck already has a good matchup for it. Two-Die Ambush Squadron is primarily a solution against Vader Yellow, but it can also be okay against other space aggro. Its main advantage is that it kills TIE Phantom, and by bringing tokens give us chance to limit Vader's white table.
Let's move on to the matchups. We have a lot of decks in the good matchup category. All aggro decks because we have 33 HP, a lot of healing, a barrage, a ramp, and solid finishers. Against Vader Yellow or Kazuda in practice, our most common finisher is Snoke himself, which grows with each attack. Against Sabine, the best of course is the Reinforcement Walker.
Especially after sideboard we have answers to everything aggro can play. Hard control is also a good matchup because we have 3 Vaders, 3 timely reinforcement and 3 commands in the main. We can simply wait for the opponent to run out of Super Laser Blast. Alternatively, Snoke, whose hard control would require 3 to improve this matchup, usually plays 1 or 2. On the side we also have 3 Pulp Saturn and 2 Relentlesses, so we are in the even better position. Mid-range decks without a very big late game, Tarkin Tau decks, Han 1 decks, Han 2 Yellow or Mono decks, Obi-Wan decks, Gar Saxon ECL. In all of these matchups we simply have a lot of answers and a stronger late game. Now the matchups are even. Boba Data Vault is similar to this deck, but this deck is more aggressive in a direct fight. A lot depends on who chooses the best ramp and barrage. Blue Hero Red decks can fight as long and hard. If Han 2 draws very well and we were average, they can sometimes win quickly, but if we manage to extend the game against them, we usually win. Ray Data Vault a long and complicated matchup that doesn't guarantee its success, but we're in a slightly better position because our Kira Data Vault a situation similar to that with Rey, but their Kira is in a slightly better position because she can decide the long game with Vigilance. Kira at 30 probably does a bit better in these matchups thanks to her greater consistency in finding barrages or a ramp. Talzin Red, since she's been playing Devastators in her main more often, is no longer far behind us in the late game and has been better table control options until we reach 7 resources. Hantu Green or Anakin Green is simply another long and difficult matchup. As for the bad matchups, we only have 2. Palpatine is too strong in the late game and often too good at table control and ramping to defeat him quickly. However, the matchup isn't hopeless, especially after sight when Palpatine's return causes the Maul to often return with a lot of overwhelm damage applied to the base. The Snoke command can single-handedly win the game if the opponent doesn't find a quick response. Blue-green villains, but this time with ECL. The point here is that ECL allows for quick use of Vader and the possibility of a one-shot Snoke, but that doesn't make this matchup unplayable. Overall, Snoke Data Vault is a really solid deck, one of the most versatile in the game right now, which is a huge plus. It's much more challenging to play than, for example, Han 2 decks, but in my opinion, it's not inferior to them at all. Thanks for watching, see you soon.